morning. We're here this morning to meet as a task force to discuss events around Independence Day, specifically the subcommittee's work, the parade, and to make a final recommendation to go in front of the Board of Selectmen. This is not a public hearing. This is a discussion. We will, before we close this out, allow the public an opportunity to speak. But any decisions that go forward to the Board of Selectmen will be done in a public hearing on May the 5th. So, with that said, our first order of business is to hear from the subcommittee task force relative to festival events which may be held on July 4th. Christine, would you like to start that conversation?
Sure. I think when we were, I do need that, Amy. When we were examining the parade, we came up with some alternative programming options that we plan on running year after year that won't impact the parade. So some of the events that we were looking at, these have not been approved by special event permitting yet. It's just ideas that we came up with that will go through the permitting process. So patriotic music in the park at Cape Park, July 4th. WASR will be Friday night, 7-2, in Cape Park. The Wright Museum will offer free admission to the museum on the 4th, and patriotic theme will be happening. Wolfboro Library is offering a summer reading program, virtual scavenger hunt. Reenacting the Historical Society. The Historical Society will have members in dress throughout the weekend. So we're looking at this being a festival and going over a 3-day span. We believe that people will be here and it will help social distance them, giving them different alternatives. Reading the Declaration. Looks like they want to do that at the Town Hall steps. Home and Business Decorating Contest. Parks and Rec and the Wolfboro Chamber Area of Commerce are doing that together. Boat Parade at Lake Wentworth. The Wentworth Watershed Parade. Specific in Lake Wentworth, and they are getting a permit from the Marine Patrol. A boat parade in Lake Winnie with Good Hugh Hawkins. And the New Hampshire Boat Museum, Millie B will run half day on the 4th, but we'll post a weekend schedule in the flyer. There's a fishing tournament on Lake Wentworth, walking tours in the gardens with the Wolfboro Garden Club. Molly the Trolley will be allowing reenactors on board and offering a discount on the 4th. And then the Libby Museum they'll be participating. We had a brief conversation with them. So what we did is we reached out to nonprofits or local businesses or departments to see what they were already offering during the 4th of July, and we kind of had a conversation to see if we could make it more of a festival. And what the plan is to have a trifold, if you will, of all the events so people are aware of what's going on. And then the hope is to continue this even in a non-COVID year when we can have the parade. So this is some alternatives. Even if we have the parade are happening, or if we don't have the parade, they're still happening with permitting process approval.
Okay, I will go around the task force and ask if there are any questions relative to what Christine has presented. Chief Zoddy, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns relative to what is being proposed at this point?
Nothing specific, other than, I guess, once we solidify which direction the town is going, we'll work with the board and the police department and so forth to determine the best method of ramping up any staffing and needs and so forth for emergency purposes. At this point, we're probably more in an advisory capacity than anything else. Once the decision is made, we'll work with the parties involved to ensure that, you know, whatever direction we go, we do it as safely as we reasonably can.
Thank you, Tom. And I'm going to go around the staff first, and then the elected officials and citizens on this committee. Chief Rondo?
No, sir.
Okay. Amy? Okay. Shelley Rondo?
I'm just concerned about keeping everybody socially distanced. I'm worried, so that's my only concern. So.
Thank you. And Mary DeVries?
I have nothing to add, no.
Okay. Dave Senecal?
Assume there'll be as many. It will depend on, from my perspective, on what percentage of people have been vaccinated within our own state. Because as most of you know that have been around here on the 4th, we do have a lot of people come into town for that parade. So that's my main concern.
Okay. Brad Harriman?
Yeah, like I say, I think the staff has come up with a great number of events here to kind of entertain people throughout the whole weekend. I think it's great. I share the same concerns as everybody about social distancing during any of the events that would have more concentrated people gathering to watch them. I did like the article that Mr. Vivian put out to us, so we'll talk about it a little bit later, about the trends and what we'd like to see trending by a cutoff date. If we do determine we want to go that route for a cutoff date for the parade specifically, and watching the trending that's happening, to make our decisions at that time and stuff. So, but overall, I'm very pleased with all these options that we have in front of us. So.
Thank you. And again, at this point, we're just talking about the other temporary events, not the parade. With that stated, I would just like to reach out to the gentleman from the American Legion relative to the temporary events that have been organized, to get your input on that.
Well, I'm Tom Southern. I'd like to address some of that. This is not complete, okay? There's some other events that may be possible to have that we can integrate with some of the things you see right here. So nothing here is really written in stone, written in paper. A couple of things we feel kind of strong about, including a boat parade. But again, these events, these ideas came about because after a meeting in January, the feeling was that we probably were not going to have a street parade because we were all concerned about that big elephant called the virus. And so it was a feeling of the committee or the people present at the time that maybe we shouldn't go through with that. So it was recommended we come up with some ideas in lieu of parade. How can we entertain the additional 21,000 or how many ever people are coming to town? People are going to come to town anyway, parade or not. And so they're going to be here, and we came up with some ideas and thoughts, something to keep people busy, entertain, some events that might bring people back in the future, okay? These were aside from the parade for this year, but these are things we want to continue in the future. I say we want to make this a festival, not a one-event thing, not just a parade. We want to include some more events, open up the town, involve more people, work together as a town for a common goal. I think this will bring the town together. So, you know, this is a partial list. There's some other thoughts we have which we may not pass or not. But anyway, these are some of the main thoughts we had. And talking to people, they kind of like the idea that we're opening them up the town. I talked to some of the business people. Some people think this is just a great, great idea. So hopefully some of these things will come to pass, parade or not. Now, okay, go ahead. And then if we can bring up the parade, but,
We'll get into the parade in a couple minutes.
okay.
Anything else?
This is Paul Vivian. The only thing I would add is we hope this festival will become an annual event. And as Tom had mentioned, another way to talk about how nice a place Wolfboro is, and another way to bring people into town to see what a great place this is. And hopefully, over the years, this will expand and become a permanent fixture in the way that Wolfboro celebrates the 4th of July.
Thank you. Okay. So we've had the feedback relative to this. I'm assuming that if this goes forward, we will begin to see some temporary events coming in for the Board of Selectmen to be able, and the department heads to sign off on.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Next, before we move into the parade, I would like to hear comments from a couple of important stakeholders. The first one is going to be Courtney Jordan from New Hampshire Homeland Security. She's our area representative. We understand that there is some changes coming down relative to mask mandates and some of the other executive orders. Courtney, I guess our questions for you at this point is, if we were to contemplate a 4th of July parade in downtown Wolfboro that could bring upwards of 20,000 people into our community, are there any issues from Homeland Security in the state of New Hampshire that the town of Wolfboro needs to be worried about?
Good morning, everyone. I've been working with the state and looking at all of the new guidance. As we all know, there was some new guidance that came out yesterday from the governor's office. I would refer you to the Municipal Association and the Attorney General's office, but also to your own decision-making process of what is correct for you and your town and where you stand at this time in this decision. It's entirely up to you guys what you feel comfortable with. And as the state, we're here as a resource, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Courtney. So basically what Courtney is saying is we're looking at a local decision here that we need to make going forward. With that said, Mr. Roberge is here from the hospital. I'd like to hear from him and his team relative to concerns that the hospital may have if we have this event with 20,000 people in downtown Wolfboro and their agency's ability to handle any increase in cases and their professional opinions as to what we should do. Mr. Roberge.
Thank you. Yeah, I can make a few brief comments about it, but I'd probably rather you hear more from Dr. Bernasian, our Chief Medical Officer, from a medical standpoint. I can speak on the hospital's behalf from a CEO or administrative standpoint, what my concerns would be. I think my greatest concern would be that it will be difficult to keep people socially distanced, and wearing masks will also most likely be difficult. The governor did lift the mask mandate, which I do have concerns. Some people will take quite literally to mean you don't have to wear masks anymore, which is not the point. Masks have been proven to help quite a bit. So I think if we were going to hold an event like this, obviously the best you could do would be to continue encouraging people to wear masks and socially distance. But I've seen pictures of the downtown. I've been in the downtown before COVID, and it gets pretty crowded, and it would be difficult to control that. That being said, we do know that being outdoors and having outdoor events are the safest events to have. It's a lot safer than holding events indoors. It is a little difficult right now when you look at the numbers. We do see the numbers going up. We do see younger people being affected by it. We are dealing with new variants. So it does put us in a difficult spot right now to, as of today, encourage holding large events. But I think we're all hopeful that by July, things will have improved and we'd be more comfortable. My stance as of today on this would be that if you were going to plan on moving forward, it would have to be with the caveat that everyone understood that this could get canceled, given the numbers. The way we're seeing numbers going up right now, if that continued, I can't see how you could feel comfortable holding an event like this. If the numbers go down, which we're all hopeful they will, and if more people are vaccinated by that point, I think again, if you put all the safety measures in place and encourage people as much as you could to remain distant and wear masks, I think you could do it in a safe way, most likely. Those are my key points, but I will turn it over, if it's okay, to turn it over to Dr. Benazian, our Chief Medical Officer.
We would absolutely love to hear from him. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Jeremy. I didn't prepare any comments, but I do agree with Jeremy. I think it's really essential to plan and to think forward, because this COVID situation, I hate to say it, in my opinion, is not going to disappear anytime soon. It's not going to disappear anytime soon. We keep seeing surprises. We keep getting surprised by the variants of concern. Some are more infective. Actually, there's a couple of strains that are less responsive to the vaccines that are out there. We already have Pfizer and Moderna working on a slightly different vaccine modification as a booster because of the Brazilian and South African variants. So it's a good idea for us to try to figure out what type of measures to put in place, because I think we're going to be dealing with this for more than just this year. That being said, I just try to keep it simple in my own mind. I pulled up the guidance from the state and from the CDC, and they say, as of March, avoid large events and gatherings when possible. Well, that kind of makes sense. Consider the level of risk when deciding to host an event. Well, as Jeremy said, hopefully in July we'll have much less community transmission. Now, community transmission is based on a few things. It's based on the most important thing, which I'll speak to in a second, and that's herd immunity. But you could have no community transmission if everyone's sitting at home. It's also based on the season. There is a seasonality to the virus, and obviously the 4th of July is excellent timing. You have to think about the characteristics of the event. Are you all next to each other and everyone shouting or singing? Well, we know that spreads the virus. But I really think, and then of course you have the unknowns, the variants of concern, the so-called UK variant, B117, I believe, is more infective. However, the current vaccines are very effective against it. So there are a lot of variables, and each week we keep getting surprised. We're surprised with the J&J vaccine being put on pause. We're surprised that now the UK variant is the #1 variant in the United States. Actually, the variant that was currently circulating wasn't the original that came from Wuhan, China. That was a variant. So these viruses are constantly mutating. I suspect the majority of them just die off and nothing happens. So I think it's very important to plan. I think we have to learn to live with this virus. I think the planning is key with regard to social distancing and mask wearing. Those are the most important mitigation measures. I can't imagine with 20,000 people in a parade how effective that would be. And I'm thinking you really need to have a decent level of herd immunity. And just to say that word, that doesn't mean everyone has to be immune. That means you have to have enough people who won't get sick that if someone exposes them, the virus will just die off because it has nowhere to live. So those are my thoughts. I don't know if there's any other questions, but...
Thank you. I think we may circle back around to you. I'm not sure at this point. I think at this point it makes the most sense to have the American Legion speak about the parade. We are in receipt of a parade permit from you. The question at this point is, do you want to continue forward and have that parade permit go in front of the Board of Selectmen in a public hearing on May the 5th?
I guess we do, yeah. I mean, we've got some thoughts. You may have received them in the email, and it may address some of the concerns that have been brought up. When we met in January, whatever that committee was, there was real concern about the virus. There's a lot we didn't know. We didn't know, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle the crowd? At that time, there was just a lot of unknowns, and I think there was a lot of fear expressed in this committee. What do we do with 20-some thousand people running up and down the streets, and this virus raging, whatever? Well, then we met again a couple weeks ago, and people expressed some concern at that meeting that, well, a lot of people have been left out, in any decision-making. In addition to that, the environment as far as the virus has changed. So there were some other factors to consider, and what we've come up with is some recommendations for the community, for the board, to consider in making or coming to a decision on the parade. We are not making the decision on the parade. We may be in favor of the parade, but there's some information that I think everybody needs to know. So this is going to be open, transparent. It's not just 6 selectmen and a few other people. This is going to be available to everybody. So anybody's got any questions, they can bring them up. We'll try to answer them as best we can. And so hopefully people will feel more comfortable in whatever decision we come to. Paul, our intelligence officer, has put in a lot of work on some of these factors that we're concerned about, things that we should be considering in coming to a decision about whether to have a parade or not. And obviously a lot of them concern the virus. Paul?
Thank you, Tom. The point we'd like to make is that the decision to go ahead with the parade or not, in other words, the decision to grant us the final parade permit, should be made by the selectmen using a criteria that is explicit, that people know what it is beforehand, and that in answering the question of this criteria, it would be based on the best data possible. Our recommendation to the selectmen as follows. Number one, 70% of the population of New Hampshire, as well as in neighboring New England states and New York, have received at least one vaccination against the coronavirus. 2, hospitalizations per 100,000 population demonstrate a steady decrease over the preceding 2 weeks prior to the final decision, which we're recommending be made on 18 June, the final decision. 3, coronavirus infections per 100,000 population demonstrate a steady decrease over preceding 2 weeks prior to the decision cutoff date. And 4, COVID-19 variants are contained by the current coronavirus vaccines. Those are 4 explicit criteria. Everyone should know what the criteria is, and then we should have a preliminary decision so we can go ahead or not go ahead. And if we do go ahead, have a final decision 2 weeks prior to the parade. And this is, I say, an explicit criteria. It's criteria based on data that is published every day, and we, the public, as well as the selectmen, can look at. And with that, they can make, I believe, the best informed decision about moving forward. Finally, just a note, as has been said before, vaccination rates are moving forward quickly, particularly with the first vaccination. And according to the CDC, the first vaccination provides an 80% efficacy. Not perfect, not as good as 2, but certainly an important step forward. If we look at our neighboring New England states, they're among the top in the nation in terms of first vaccine, and New Hampshire is in fact leading the nation in the number of first doses of vaccine. That's our recommendation. We think it needs to be, the decision needs to be made as rationally as possible on explicit criteria, on data that is publicly available. Thank you.
And just so that we are clear, these recommendations are coming forward from the American Legion
That is
as
correct.
the parade organizers.
That is correct.
Thank you. We've discussed this heavily. We've heard the recommendations coming forward from the parade organizers. I would like to make a motion that we bring the parade permit forward to the Board of Selectmen for a May 5th public hearing utilizing the recommendation criteria established by the American Legion.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Discussion from the staff. Christine.
No, I think it's a good idea.
Chief Zadi.
I would concur with that. I think one thing we're seeing is numbers are changing minute by minute, and I think that is a reasonable compromise as we get a little closer to see where the numbers are trending and make a final decision on or about the 18th of June.
Chief Rondo.
Yes.
Amy. Shelley Rondo.
I still have some big concerns about the parade. I'm sorry, but the community health of Walkboro is important to us, and not sure that bringing 20,000 people in is a good idea. So that's where I stand.
Thank you. Mary DeVries.
Mr. Pinio, I am in favor of the motion. I do have some comments, so should I wait until after the vote?
Let's finish the vote and then we'll have input. Brad Harriman.
Yeah, I'm agree with it and in favor of the motion to bring it forward.
And Dave Senical.
Yes.
Okay. Mary DeVries, you have a comment.
So, yes, thank you. I'm thinking very much about what you, Dr. Bornasian, expressed in your comments. And with those in mind, I would like the opportunity for this group, maybe not today, but to please look at a new strategy for holding the parade in Wolfboro. Because if we're thinking not only about this year, how could Wolfboro hold a parade if the conditions in that list of criteria are such that we can't hold it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And some of the thoughts I had, for example, is could we have a reservation system so we're not only limiting the number of people who, for example, are right on Main Street in town, but those people, when they make their reservation, they're committing to wearing a face mask. They're committing to staying in with their family and friends who they are with on a daily basis, things like that. And then could we have an oversized screen in Foss Field, that the parade could be protected live on that screen. So we are spreading that crowd out. We're moving some of those thousands of people to different areas in the community. And it might be, a lot of work. It might be a financial investment for some added technology. But if we're looking at long-term, taking those steps now might help us for, just that long-term planning. I guess I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I think one of the challenges we would have with that is logistically the staffing, whether it be police department, fire department, other town departments, to be able to manage those additional sites. And again, who's going to manage that reservation system and who's going to enforce it? I think that becomes challenging. It's all interesting thought processes, but I think we're kind of tight on time to make those things a success, and as you alluded to, financially challenging. Okay, so with that stated, do we have anything else for this committee to discuss at this point relative to the 4th of July? Christine.
I just have a quick question. Did we establish, are you requesting July 4th or July 5th for the parade? The 4th, okay. Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that.
Thank you. Any other input from the committee? Okay, at this time we'll take public input. Any public input?
For the record, Luke Freudenberg, 68 Center Street, Wolfboro. Thank you for letting me speak, having the opportunity to speak. A little bit about my background, so people just don't think that I'm a owner of a barge company. I spent 5 years studying emergency management. My specialty is bioterrorism. I worked for the Department of Homeland Security and FEMA. So this is in my wheelhouse, and I've been following this since the beginning. It's why I ran for selectman. I want to be part of the reopening of America and our town, and I find it worrisome that we would choose to, in some senses, cancel something early on in this year when the facts and the science are not clear and things are changing daily. But as you know, the Department of Health and Human Services Secretary said a little over 40 days ago in a statement, we are going to see increases in the numbers over the coming year. We will see spikes. We will see occasional, ups and downs. But the state needs to remain open. And I think with Governor Sununu's comments a week ago stating that, he too would be at a parade this summer, and he encourages all citizens in New Hampshire to, reopen and be open by Memorial Day and through the summer. And then just yesterday with, obviously letting the mask mandate expire, I think it should not be taken lightly that we have such a stellar epidemiologist, Dr. Ben Chan, who is advising our governor on these issues daily. And that has been important all throughout the process. It's why New Hampshire is #1 right now in the country for, first doses. It's why our numbers are the way they are. Wolfboro has done an incredible job. The Board of Selectmen, everybody in this town has done an incredible job protecting the public from the virus. But just as the door closed, we must also look to reopen. And it's not just about a parade. It's not just about July 4th. It is about that reopening process. And if we do it carefully, and if we follow science, and if we change things up a little bit to make them safer, there is no reason we can't do this. As Dr. Bernasian said, if you just look at July and the summertime and the temperatures, we all know that there are seasonal trends in the virus. It's going to be hot. Hopefully it'll be sunny. It'll be beautiful. There's no better time and to do this and to do it in a safe and effective way. The 30 to 50-year-olds are driving the current trends with the numbers. We are going to see, we're going to see ups and downs over the coming months. But I'm glad that this committee, this task force, has decided to push this forth to the selectmen. Ultimately, it is up to the selectmen to make this decision, to weigh the cost, the potential costs, and what could happen with having it. But I will say that, it's important. It's important for people's mental health. It's important to move this reopening process forward safely so that we can all get back to some semblance of normal, so that I'm not sitting here again next year debating the exact same thing over and never knowing when America and Wolfboro may go back to the great place that it is and was. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input?
Hi, my name is Steve Johnson. I'm from Wolfboro. And a year ago this month, Dennis Prager said on one of his podcasts, "Until it's safe means never." Florida has been open since last summer. Residents there were free to choose whether to wear a mask or not, whether to go out to eat or not, whether to attend a parade or not. All of their college students, all their high school students were able to play football and sports in a normal fashion. We should encourage the same. I concur with the American Legion's analysis that they did, as well as with Luke. And again, life is meant to be lived victoriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public input?
Hey guys, obviously the governor lifted the mask mandate. People are going to be here no matter what at our restaurants, downtown, barbecues, boating, regardless. The parade does not bring 20,000 people to town. 20,000 people are going to be here with the parade or without it. Last year, when everyone canceled the fireworks, I thought it would be nice to do a private show. I called Wolfboro. Wolfboro said no. I called the town of Laconia. I ended up sponsoring and doing all the fireworks in Laconia. So Laconia had a July 4th show last year. It was a huge turnout. Lots of people were on boats. Lots of people were social distancing. There was no major fallout from that. Last year the fear was that the hospitals would be overrun. There wouldn't be enough beds, not enough ventilators. Not one person here today has voiced that concern. That's not really the issue anymore. So I think we need to move past some of these draconian measures because we're just in a different spot. That's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
What was his name?
Could we get your name? Nate Druin. Thank you, Nate. Any other public input?
Brian Deshays would like a little input, please.
We'll get to the online people in just a minute.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jeremiah Burke. I appreciate all the work that everyone's doing in the input and comments. You know, I came forward with the Board of Selectmen with just some public information that I feel that the public wants to see a parade. But setting the parade aside for a moment right now, I don't know where things stand on a fireworks display. That Nate brought up of having a fireworks that they sponsored, but I don't know, is that something that the task force has been working towards, has been able to find ways to do, but just curious as to understand, you know, what fireworks display might or could be able to happen, if that's been discussed.
So the fireworks have been heavily discussed. One of the early items that was discovered was our normal contracted service told us they needed to know by March 31st whether or not it was a go. The venue which we utilized to launch the fireworks from said that they could not commit to such a time. We looked at other options for land-launched fireworks and made the determination that it wasn't going to be successful at this point. So the fireworks, at this point, we made the decision to follow last year's protocol, which was no firework permits will be issued for town property. With that said, you know, we've got some other challenges associated with fireworks. We've got a lot of events which are taking place on the 4th of July, and quite frankly, one of the challenges with it is the 4th of July tends to be a party atmosphere, and a lot of times our law enforcement have to deal with those people in that intimate situation and could expose them. So because of those reasons, we've kind of made the decision no on the fireworks.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anybody else in the Great Hall have any comments? Seeing none, Brian Deshays online.
Yeah, I just had a few comments. I'll be brief. The first thing is that if we're going to be checking science, I went through every state in New England and New York to see what their percentage of cases were in their population. And believe it or not, I don't bury my head in the sand. New Hampshire has a higher percentage than Maine, than Vermont, than Massachusetts, than Connecticut, than New York, even more than Manhattan. So New Hampshire, we are doing well, but let's not paint the rosy picture and say we're the best in the world. That's my first point. So if we're going to follow the science, let's follow all the science, not just cherry pick. I believe that it's very difficult to get 20,000 people in the town of Wolfboro and have a parade and guarantee that nobody's going to get hurt. That said, there are a lot of other things in life that we do and we risk and we don't even think about, like driving our cars. More people get injured and killed driving cars every year than any other activity that you do voluntarily. But the last problem that I have with this solution was that I believe that an informational warrant should have gone out to the people of Wolfboro just so that we would have known what the community thought about having 4th of July festivities. Doesn't mean that we have to follow an informational warrant results, but it would give people in charge of a committee at least another piece to the picture to say, what does our community want? How can we make our community get what they want and what they deserve? We are elected, appointed, we represent the people of the town, and we should take their voices into thought and consideration when we make a decision, not just a small group of people deciding for the whole community. That's just my thought. I hope going forward when we have very contentious issues like this, that we will try and take the whole town's opinion as best we can. Even as a selectman, it's very difficult for me to attend every meeting and to be in every place at the same time. Families working and people that are busy don't have the opportunity at 11 o'clock to chime into a meeting or even listen to a meeting. So let's make it so that the people in the town have a voice. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other input? Seeing none, I do have one statement that I would like to make. Under normal circumstances, these gentlemen from the American Legion do a tremendous job at putting this parade together. It's logistically challenging. It's even going to be more logistically challenging during COVID. So for all of the people out there listening, reach out to them and offer your assistance. It's important. They need it. People want a parade. We're working to give you a parade. But the organizers need help. With that said, anything else to come in front of this committee? I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Let's adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.